Alright, what is going on? Pretender here, back with another Honkai Star Rail guide, and today I'm going to be providing a full build guide on the GOAT Aventurine. Aventurine will be releasing during 2.0 second half alongside the Jinglu rerun, and so today I'm going to be going over his kit, Eidolons, best Lightcones, and best Relics, along with Relic stats. This video will be two sections. I will be going over his kit, Eidolons first. Then when I do talk about the Lightcones and Relics, I'm going to first talk about purely defensive / sustain Aventurine. After that, I'll be talking about the hybrid DPS and sustain Aventurine. The reason I'm splitting this is because there are two ways to build him, because Aventurine himself is a fantastic DPS, while he is also a fantastic sustain. So this video will cover both the needs, whether you're looking to pull him as a pure sustain or whether you're looking to build him as a more DPS but also sustain. I do plan on having a build guide for every 2.1 character. I've already made one for Acheron and Luocha. You are now watching the Aventurine one, and I will have a Jinglu one in the near future. So definitely stay tuned for that. Now before I get into the video, if you guys say drop a like on the video, drop a sub, turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with other type of guides, news, showcases, funny challenges, all that kind of stuff, and let's get straight into the video. So Aventurine is an imaginary character following the path of preservation. His basic attack deals imaginary damage equal to 100% of Aventurine's defense to a single target enemy. His skill provides all allies with a fortified wager shield that can block damage equal to 24% of Aventurine's defense plus 320, lasting for 3 turns. When repeatedly gaining fortified wager, the shield effect can stack up to 200% of the shield provided by the current skill. So it can stack, so if you refresh it, it can indeed stack. His ultimate randomly gains 1 to 7 points of blind bet, then inflicts unnerved on a single target enemy lasting for 3 turns and deals imaginary damage equal to 270% of Aventurine's defense to a single target enemy. When an ally hits an unnerved enemy target, the crit damage dealt increases by 15%. So when you do ult someone and you inflict unnerved on them, anyone attacking that unnerved enemy target will receive 15% increased crit damage dealt. Moving on to his talent, the effect res increases by 50% for a single ally with fortified wager. And when this allied character gets attacked, Aventurine gains 1 point of blind bet. When Aventurine has fortified wager, he can resist crowd control debuffs. This effect can trigger again after 2 turns. Aventurine additionally gains 1 point of blind bet after getting attacked. Upon reaching 7 points of blind bet, Aventurine consumes the 7 points to launch a 7-hit follow-up attack, with each hit dealing imaginary damage equal to 25% of Aventurine's defense to a single random enemy. Blind bet is capped at 10 points. So as you guys do know, I mentioned of him being a DPS. The reason he's a sustain is because he provides shield, scales on defense. The shield scales on defense, but his damage also does, and with this follow-up attack you can do, the damage he can dish out is pretty crazy. His technique, after using the technique, one of the following effects will be granted. There is a chance for defense to be increased by 24%, there is a high chance for defense to increase by 36%, there is a small chance for defense to increase by 60%. He is a gambler, so this is very fitting. Note that when the technique is used repeatedly, the acquired effect with the highest buff value is retained. When the next battle starts, it increases all allies' defense by the corresponding value lasting for 3 turns. Moving on to his bonus ability, his first one, after an ally with fortified wager launches a follow-up attack, Aventurine accumulates 1 blind bet point. This effect can be triggered up to 3 times, and its trigger count resets at the start of Aventurine's turn. After Aventurine launches his follow-up attack, provides all allies with fortified wagers that can block damage equal to 7% of Aventurine's defense plus 96, and additionally grants fortified wagers that can block damage equal to 7% of Aventurine's defense plus 96 to the ally with the lowest shield effect lasting for 3 turns. His second bonus ability, when the battle starts, grants all allies a fortified wager shield, whose shield effect is equal to 100% of the one provided by the skill lasting for 3 turns. Now his third bonus ability, for every 100 of Aventurine's defense that exceeds 1600, increases his own crit rate by 2% up to a maximum increase of 48%. Giving him more defense gives him more crit rate. Every 100 past 1600 gives him 2% crit rate up to a maximum of 48%. This is why building him as a hybrid DPS / sustain is recommended, just because of the follow-up attack dishing out good damage, and then you're also benefiting from getting crit rate by also giving him defense. Going over his Eidolons, his first Eidolon increases crit damage by 20% for allies with fortified wager. After using the ultimate, provides all allies with a fortified wager shield, but shield effect is equal to 100% of the one provided by the skill lasting for 3 turns. His second bonus ability, when using basic attack, reduces the target's all type res by 12% for 3 turns. His fourth bonus ability, when triggering his talent's follow-up attack, first increases Aventurine's defense by 40% for 2 turns, and additionally increases the hits per action for his talent's follow-up attack by 3. His final Eidolon, for every ally with the shield, the damage dealt by Aventurine increases by 50% up to a maximum of 150%. As you see, his first 2 Eidolons are very nice on the supportive side that can also benefit him, and then his 4th and 6th Eidolon are very good for turning him into a crazy DPS. And so now going over to his best Lightcones, for the sustain, it is still going to be his signature one. What it does is increases the wearer's defense by 40%. When the wearer provides a shield to an ally, the wearer's crit damage increases by 40%, lasting for 2 turns. When the wearer uses a follow-up attack and attacks the enemy, there's a 100% base chance to increase the damage taken by the attacked enemy by 10%, lasting for 2 turns. Why this is also really good for a defensive sustain Aventurine is because it does give you a 40% stat stick, which is the highest in the game. Also just giving himself more crit damage so he can deal some better damage even as a sustain. But it's the fact that he also does make the enemy take increased damage. So overall, this Lightcone is just fantastic in every scenario. Another really good option for a defensive sustain Aventurine is Jeopard's signature Lightcone. What it does is increases the wearer's defense by 24% and effect hit rate by 24%. Increases the chance for the wearer to be attacked by enemies. When the wearer is attacked, increases their defense by an extra 24% until the end of the wearer's turn. This one is also nice because of the defensive buffs you can get from this. If you do get hit, the defensive value you do gain is higher than the signature one. Sadly, the effect hit rate is kind of useless on this one, but having a higher chance to be attacked is nice, so your actual DPSs have a less chance of getting attacked and dying. Overall, it is still a fantastic option. A pretty good 4-star option is actually day 1 of my new life, and what it does is increase the wearer's defense by 16%. After entering battle, increase all type res of all allies by 8%. Defense of the same type cannot stack. So this one is just a nice stat stick you can get for Aventurine, and then I guess the all type res for all allies is nice. And R5 you gain a 24% defense bonus and increase the all type res of all allies by 12%. So overall, it is a nice option. And a less desirable but still usable option is Lando's Choice. What it does is the wearer is more likely to be attacked and damage taken is reduced by 16%. Like I mentioned with Jeopard, getting a increased chance to be attacked towards your sustain is the best because you want them to be the one getting attacked. Because overall, them not attacking your DPSs means they're less likely to die, so your run doesn't fall apart. And also getting less damage taken is going to be nice. And at R5, you take up to 24% less damage. So overall, this isn't better than the other ones, but it is still an option you can use. Moving on to his best relics, the best relic set you can use for a defensive sustain Aventurine is going to be 4-piece Knight of Purity Palace. The 2-piece increases defense by 15%, and the 4-piece increases the max damage that can be absorbed by the shield created by the wearer by 20%. And since he does provide an AoE shield, this will apply to all those shields, so a stronger shield will be nice, and also gaining 15% defense is also really good. Another option you can do is run 2-piece Knight and 2-piece Hackerspace. 2-piece Hackerspace gives the 2-piece Hackerspace increases speed by 6%, so your Aventurine is a bit faster. So just rocking 2-piece and 2-piece of this is nice because you get the speed bonus and you still get a defense bonus. As for the Planet Ornaments, if you are rocking a defensive sustain Aventurine, I do recommend giving him Broken Keel or Fleet of the Ages just so your allies do more damage. Broken Keel increases the wearer's effect res by 10%, and when the wearer's effect res is 30% or higher, all allies' crit damage increases by 10%. As for Fleet of the Ageless, increases the wearer's max HP by 12%, and when the wearer's speed reaches 120 or higher, all allies' attack increases by 8%. So both these options are pretty nice to have, just because if you are running him for purely defensive purposes and just to be a sustain, there really isn't much planner ornaments that can help you with that, so just giving a nice supportive one is going to be good. Now the reason I don't recommend the Bellabog Planet Ornament is just because while yes you do get a 15% increase in defense and you can get up to 30, overall I think you'd benefit just giving your team a supportive buff with these would be better just because you only get 15%, and from what you're going to be having from the relics, the relic bonuses, the substats, all that kind of stuff, you'll practically have more than enough defense. And for the second part, the effect hit rate is 50% or higher, then you get the extra one. You're not going to be building a Aventurine with effect hit rate, especially not 50% or higher. So for the most part, you won't be able to get the full buff here. So that's why I don't really recommend running the Bellabog set. Now moving on to the main stats for the relics. The main stats for a sustain Aventurine is both obvious and flexible. What you can do is for the body, give him either defense or crit damage. Crit damage would lean more to the DPS side, but with the other relic sets you will have, all that kind of stuff will be pretty defensive already. So you can do crit damage if you have enough. For the feet, you will rock speed. You can also do defense, but I would recommend speed for the boots. For the orb, you will rock imaginary damage or defense percent. And for the link rope, you will rock defense percent. For the substats, mainly you will want to at least hit a breakpoint, so hopefully 134 speed or higher with Aventurine. Followed or equal priority will be more defense. You want to get into at least 4,000 defense. Past that is just extra and you still can go higher, but 4,000 defense at least is going to be nice. If you can't get the 4,000, that's still fine. but it is still a nice option. Even if you are running a purely sustained Aventurine, you still want him to deal okay damage with the follow-up attack and the ultimate, so just keep in mind that you want to have him doing a little bit of damage, so don't just end up giving him a defense body, defense feet, defense orb, defense rope. Just try to balance it out a bit and just make sure you have around 4,000. You can still go higher, but just don't overshoot it. If you are running Broken Kill, you obviously want to prioritize Effect Res to get up to 30% or higher. And then past that, you can just focus on either HP percents, or you can also just go for crits, just so you can deal a bit more damage. And now moving on to more of the DPS sustain Aventurine. His best Lightcone will still be his signature one. Again, it gives you 40% defense, really good. It gives you crit damage, which is fantastic, and increases damage that the enemies are taking after you do use a follow-up attack. So overall, this Lightcone is still the best one. To see the full explanation, just go ahead and revert back to when I did first talk about this for the defense part. Another fantastic option is the upcoming Lightcone Concert for 2. It is a 4-star. What it does is increases the wearer's defense by 16%. For each character with a shield on the field, the damage dealt by the wearer increases by 4%, and since when you do provide a shield, it is to everyone, so you are getting a pretty hefty bonus. And at R5, the defense you do get goes up to 32%, and the damage increase goes up to 8%. So overall, this is a fantastic option for a DPS/sustain Aventurine. Jetbread's Lightcone is still fantastic just because you are getting a ton of defense percent from it, so overall, it is also another option you still can use. Another 4-star option is actually the This Is Me Lightcone. What it does is increases the wearer's defense by 16%, increases the damage of the wearer when they use their ultimate by 60% of the wearer's defense. This effect only applies one time per enemy target during each use of the wearer's ultimate. For the most part, he is single target, so it's pretty easy to get the second part. And again, defense stat stick is nice, 32% at R5, and increase the damage of the wearer when they use their ultimate by 120% at R5. So this is another pretty good option for a DPS Aventurine. And overall, his Lightcone, signature Lightcone, will be the best one, regardless if you are running him as a sustain/defense pure build, or if you're running him as a sustain/DPS build. This Lightcone just does everything for him. Jetbread's Lightcone again is still just good on both sides, just because it just gives you a bunch of defense overall, and since even as a DPS he still scales off defense, so the amount of defense it gives is fantastic. This one is just nice for the defense and the damage dealt. And then this one, while on the weaker side, it still gives you a good amount of defense at R5, and also does help out because for the most part he is single target, so the second part of the Lightcone can be used. Now moving on to the DPS/sustain Aventurine, the best thing you can do is still rocking the Knight of the Purity Palace, but not the 4-piece. You're gonna rock 2-piece of this, and then 2-piece of either the follow-up set or the imaginary set. The follow-up set increases the damage dealt by the follow-up attacks by 20%. Overall, Aventurine's follow-up attacks will be the main source of his damage, so this one is the more recommended amount, but you still can do the imaginary set because it increases imaginary damage by 10% for the 2-piece. And so this one will also increase his follow-up damage because it still does hit imaginary type damage, but it'll also increase the damage of his basic attack and ultimate, so overall this is still another really good option. So just rocking 2-piece of Knights and 2-piece follow-up set, or 2-piece Knights and 2-piece imaginary. The reason Knights is still here is just because the extra 15% defense is really good. Because he does mainly scale off defense, you want to have a high amount of defense. As I previously mentioned, having up to 4,000 is recommended. Another pretty good set you can run on Aventurine is the debuff set. The 2-piece increases damage dealt to enemies with debuffs by 12%, and the 4-piece increases crit rate by 4%, and the wearer deals 8%/12% increased crit damage to enemies with at least 2/3 debuffs. After the wearer inflicts a debuff on enemy targets, the aforementioned effects increase by 100%, lasting for 1 turn. The unnerved inflicted by his ultimate is considered a debuff, so you can get the aforementioned effects. And if you do have E2, then his basic attack can also proc it because the res reduction is also considered a debuff. This set will mainly be if you are running him on a follow-up attack team. For the most part, it's either a follow-up attack team or you're running him as a sustain on the Acheron team. Otherwise, you'd mainly just want to focus on running 2-piece Knights and 2-piece of one of these. For the planar ornaments, the best planar ornaments for DPS/sustain Aventurine will be Inertial Salto. What it does is increases the wearer's crit rate by 8%. When the wearer's crit rate reaches 50% or higher, the wearer's ultimate and follow-up damage increases by 15%. This is fantastic because, again, his main source of damage will be from his follow-up attacks, so giving a 50% bonus to that is very nice, and also his ultimate can hit pretty hard. So now this one also does benefit his ultimate. If you do for some reason have a bunch of speed on your Aventurine, Glamoth is also not a bad idea. What it does is increase the wearer's attack by 12%. Sadly, he doesn't benefit too much from the attack percent, but he will benefit from the second part, which what it is when the wearer's speed is equal or higher than 135/160. The wearer deals 12%/18% more damage. Increasing his damage dealt will obviously be good, because the more damage dealt, the more his follow-up and alt will do. So Glamoth, if you are hitting 135/160, I don't know why you'd have 160 speed or higher, but if you can, it is still a nice option if you do have the right Relics for it. But mainly you're going to be focusing on Inertial Solid just because it does benefit him in every way possible, giving him crit rate, increasing the damage dealt by his ultimate and follow-up attack. This one, he doesn't benefit too much from attack percent, so overall you're wanting to mainly run Inertial Solid. Now as for the main stats, for a DPS/sustain Aventurine, you're going to be wanting to rock a crit damage body. For the boots, you'll be rocking speed. For the orb, you'll be rocking imaginary damage. And for the link rope, you'll be rocking defense percent. If you cannot get up to 4,000 defense with that build, you can sub out the body for defense percent instead of crit damage. That is also alright. The difference between crit damage and defense percent for Aventurine isn't that different. So you can be fine with rocking a defensive body instead of crit damage. That is completely alright. For the substats, you want to mainly focus on crit rate and crit damage, and then also defense percent if you aren't up to the 4,000 threshold. The reason I say you want 4,000 is so you get the full 48% crit rate from his bonus ability. After crit rate, crit damage, and defense percent, you can also focus on speed. Make sure you do get him to at least a breakpoint, because you don't want your Aventurine being a DPS that is really slow. You still want him to get enough turns, being able to ult enough to have Unnerved inflicted on the enemy. You definitely want to make sure he has enough speed. Past that, flat defense also works. Some attack percent is fine, but mainly for the most part, you'll be wanting crits, defense, and speed. So yeah, that is the full build guide for Aventurine. Yes, a lot of information. I hope you guys did find this video helpful. Again, Aventurine will be a fantastic sustain, so you can build him as a sustain, but I personally would recommend building him as a DPS/sustain, just because his DPS capabilities are fantastic. You aren't really missing out too much by building him as a DPS. You still have fantastic capabilities for sustain, and so you just get the best out of both worlds, and let's face it, who doesn't want the best out of both worlds? So yeah, that has been the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.